Hi everyone, my name is Haley and welcome back or welcome to my channel. For this week's video, I wanted to do reading 1-star reviews of my 5-star books. I have my phone right here. What I'm going to do is just go through some of my 5-star reads on Goodreads, sort to the 1 stars, and see what people had to say. See if I agree, see if I disagree. I usually only read ratings of books on Goodreads if I didn't really enjoy the book. And then obviously like my friends on Goodreads, I see their thoughts and everything like that, but I don't generally read reviews of my 5-star books because I'm like, this is perfect. I don't need anyone else's opinion on it, so this is going to be very interesting. I do have some physical copies of the books I will be talking about, but I don't want to take them down and I don't have some of the physical copies of others, so I'm just going to put the book here or here. With all of that out of the way, let's just get into it. Also, if you want to be friends on Goodreads, my account is linked in the description. This is what my profile picture looks like. Honestly, with Goodreads and like adding friends and stuff, I feel like the interface is not very good, so I will link it down below, and if you want to be friends, send me a request. The first book I'm going to be reading 1-star reviews of is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. If you are not new to my channel, you know I love this book. I talk about it a lot. Something that I love about it is the dystopian aspect of it, and it's about like burning books in this society and what it would be like if there was no free thinking, the government controlled everything that you consumed, and if you were reading books that kind of expanded your knowledge outside of this government society, then it was a crime, and so they burn all the books to make sure that no one gets their own ideas, basically. And I really love older classic books about government conspiracies and technology because at the time I'm sure it seemed outrageous, but today it's kind of closer to the truth than it being fiction, which is kind of scary if I'm being honest. So I really love books like that. I think maybe a gripe that people will have with this book is the writing style. It is very like lyrical, a lot of metaphors. I was an English major. I love writing that way, so reading things like that is not really jarring to me, and I like to do it. So those are my thoughts. Let's go look at the 1-star reviews now. There really aren't that many 1 stars. This is like the dispersed ratings, I guess. So there you go. 5-star and 4-star seem to be like pretty even, and then 3-star is maybe 2/3 of that, and then 2-star is not that much, and 1-star is even less. Okay, this one's pretty funny because it kind of goes in line with exactly what I love about this book, so let me read this to you now. It says, "Few appreciate irony as much as I do, so understand that I understand this review." Okay? "The message of this book is decent. Knowledge should not be censored. However, the rest of the book is utter shit. I found myself actually screaming at several points as Bradbury spent minutes and dozens of metaphors and allusions referring to one insignificant detail of the plot. It is too damn flowery to be understandable by anyone, in other words, an English teacher's dream. In addition, the story was about the message, not the story in and of itself. Those of you who know me understand that this is what I detest most about classics, tied with how everyone reveres them without reading them." As you can see in this review, everything that I love about this book, this person really did not like, and I think this book specifically is very polarizing because people like what the book is about, but they really don't like the way it's written. Let's look at another one. "The way you can tell this was written by a man is he writes a teenage girl who walks alone at night and voluntarily begins a conversation with a male stranger." There's many points here that I agree with. It is true, like a woman would not feel comfortable going out and doing that. The male perspective is very prominent in this book. I will agree with that. I'm gonna condense this person's review and just read the beginning and the end because everyone has a lot to say about this book. "I can't believe this book is required reading in my daughter's high school English class, in parentheses honors. It's perhaps the worst piece of writing I've ever read since I served on the editorial board for my college's literary magazine." I was on my college's literary magazine. "It reads like it was written by a melodramatic adolescent, though Bradbury was already a father of 2 when he wrote this in 1950. And then they say, "But it's the prose, oh my god, the overwrought prose. Each sentence packed with 6 wild similes, many of which don't even make sense. Perhaps most hilarious is Bradbury's admission in the afterword that he wrote the first draft of the novel while typing on rented typewriters in the basement of the UCLA library. It cost a dime per half hour, and so he typed as fast as he could and finished the entire novel in a mere $9.80. That explains a lot. I think he was just trying to save money, okay? That's my opinion. Again, everyone is saying things that I loved about this book, which I kind of figured was gonna happen. I respect everyone's opinions, but it's still 5 stars for me, and I will die on that hill. The next book that we're gonna go to is City of Bones, the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. I give every single book in the series 5 stars, but City of Bones is the one that I remember every single detail of the most because I rewatch the movie all the time, and I've read that book like 7 times. So we're choosing the first one. It has an average rating of 4.08 stars, so not too bad. So here you can see again how the ratings are dispersed. This one says, pure and utter crap. I wish there were ways to give negative stars. I certainly want the time from my life back. I would compare its writing quality to fanzine, except that comparison wouldn't be fair to fanzines. But I swear to God, it took every single bad fanfic writing cliche and published them. What were her publishers thinking? Where was her editor? It was horrible. I would dearly love for a fanfiction author to make good and become a published writer, but I prefer one with talent. Thanks. I personally have read a lot of fan fiction, and the tropes might be similar, I will give you that, but the writing style I feel like is on the better side of fan fiction writers. If you have gone into the depths of Wattpad and AO3, you know that people are writing these books with their eyes closed, okay? So yes, the writing style is very juvenile in the first book and the first series especially, but it is a young adult book, so to be expected. I think it's like better fan fiction writing. That's all I'm gonna say for that one. This is the last one we're gonna read for this book, and it says, Clary annoyed me, Jace annoyed me, Isabel was that typical beautiful but yet slightly bitchy character, Yawn boring, can we stop having this typical one-dimensional character, Alex slightly interested me with his internal debate about who he is, basically all the characters were just annoying, all but Bane, he was pretty badass. I'm hoping the next books are better. I don't know if I should attempt to read the next books. I feel like, again, the first book is very rough draft of what happens in the rest of the Shadowhunters Chronicles. Like, you get to see a lot more of Izzy's character development in the later books, Jason Clary's character development in the later books. You get to see, I know Simon wasn't mentioned in here, but if you read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, you get to hear and see a lot more of Simon. The series is 6 books. There is a lot of character development that happens throughout the series. I can understand where she's coming from, but since I know how the characters develop, I'm like, no, they're not annoying. You just have to give them a chance. I feel like if I were to read them more critically, I would have some critiques, but I don't read that series to read critically. I read it to have fun. So sue me. That's what I do it for. The next one will be Dune. I feel like this one is also going to be polarizing, and this has an average rating of 4.26 stars. This is the overall ratings on there. So it says 60 pages in and then I DNF'd. World building is literally shit in this book. I wanted to read this book just in case I accidentally bumped into Timothy or Zendaya, but I really tried being that bitch, but that bitch was not trying to be me. Horrible, unreadable, and should be illegal, but think about it, if this book was written by a woman, I just know I'd be able to actually read it cover to cover, never again. I have the copy that has the appendix and the glossary in the back, and so I wouldn't say that the world building is shit. I would just say that the book starts as if it's not fiction. Like, it starts and you are expected to already know Arrakis and like who the people are, how the politics work, what the spice is, all of that stuff. So it does feel really jarring to start reading a book that does not really give you any world building because you're just thrown into the world that has already been built in the book. I would highly recommend to get a copy that has the glossary in it. I'm not sure if all of the newer copies have it or not, but the one that I'm showing on this screen has it. So if you're worried about that, that's what I would recommend. I was flipping back and forth multiple times throughout the book, but once you kind of get the groove and you understand the politics and the planet and everything that's going on, it's much easier to digest and understand because the whole plot doesn't really change. But again, trying to get over that initial hurdle is definitely difficult. I had a hard time with it, but I've always wanted to read Dune, so I really tried to push through, and I'm really happy I did because it is one of my favorite books. Okay, this one says, I am so glad I finally fulfilled my half of the bet. This book was so dumb, it was a chore to get through. through, and I haven't pushed past the pain period in years. People writing worms, killing their grandpas, weird names for knives, bullets, and don't forget everyone is addicted to cinnamon. I thought it was lame, it felt really juvenile. The author seemed to be trying really hard to make everything really mysterious and mythical, and all I could think was how lame it was. All blue eyes, a worm's called a maker's, suits where you drink your own body moisture, in parentheses disgusting, and I will not argue with that point. I'm also annoyed that this book was read in exchange for Pride and Prejudice. Compared with a timeless classic, the book seems like a first grade primer. Austen is a master of plot and suspense. You may not like the subject matter, admittedly it is a little girly, but the woman can write. Herbert, not even close. I'm going to focus on the really mysterious and mythical aspect of this review because religion plays a big part in this book. So there is like two different sides of the conflict. You have the imperial, whatever they're called, I can't even remember, but they're like the, not the president, but like the people that work in the government in space, okay, that's one side. And then you have the other side, who are the Fremen, who live on Arrakis, and they kind of like live underground in these caves, and the space government hates them, and that's like a budding conflict. But one thing that the Fremen believe that is different than the space government is that it's a more religious practice to live underground and have this connection with the worms and the spice and everything like that. So in my opinion, at least, Herbert uses the mythical and mysterious aspect when talking about the Fremen and in a lot of Fremen scenes because they are like a religious people. So that's all I'm gonna say for that. Okay, I think we will do two more books, and the second to last one I'm going to do for this video is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I had a mental breakdown after I read this book, and I still think about it every single day. The average rating of this book is 4.20, and here is the overall ratings. I really loved this book because it is a very lyrical writing style. I am a sucker for romance plot lines that actually rip my heart out, and it was like unlike anything I've ever read before, and it really left a big impact on me personally, and it is the type of writing and the type of story that I would like to write one day, and so it's been very inspirational to me, and it's just like something that has emotionally impacted me so much. So that's why I love this book, and it might pain me to read some of these one-star reviews. Also, it's very character driven. There's not really a lot of plot, and I think some people might not know that they prefer plot driven books more than character driven books, and then criticize a book for not having plot when it's a character driven book. So it's important to know that when you are picking out a book, like what you enjoy reading about. This book is so monotonous, repetitive, and shallow. It could have been 100 pages and the story would have been the same. Addie is simply wandering around cities in two different time periods, meeting strangers and having pointless conversations with them. Nothing seems to have changed about her during the span of 300 years. She hasn't grown up intellectually, she hasn't matured in any way, she has no hobbies, no interests. Addie spends her life walking. Nothing is even mentioned about the world around her during those 300 years and the historic events she should have lived through, like for example World War II. I thought that when she finally finds the mysterious person who would remember her, the story would pick up, but that didn't happen. We got yet another character that walks aimlessly around, moping and feeling bad for himself. And just as I thought that nothing could possibly make this any worse, came the ending. I think sometimes, or a lot of times, even if the book doesn't intentionally do it, authors are writing books that can teach the reader lessons. So while this person might not think that there was any point to Addie having these conversations with people and meeting a bunch of different people throughout the book, I think that it's a way for the author to either say things, express things, or teach their reader something without like saying it directly. I don't think this book could have been 100 pages and it could have had the same effect. I think the fact that it is long and we see Addie going through all of these different phases and meeting all of these people and continuously being reminded about how much she wishes she could be remembered really makes the ending hit that much harder. I think it just, you wouldn't have had the emotional connection to her and felt so connected to her if the book was shorter. And then also about the historical events that she should have lived through, I feel like it's not a historical fiction book, it's a fantasy book, so I didn't think it was necessary to have any of the like like important historical events going on inserted into the book. I think a lot of us grew up learning about world history and stuff like that, so it's not really important for it to be in the book. That's all I have to say for that. Let's look for a different one. This is a really short one. It says, if you like this book, good for you, but fuck me, it was so boring, overhyped and underwhelming. This book can sit on my middle finger and rotate. Again, I'm just gonna go back to what I was saying earlier. This is a very character-driven book and not plot-heavy at all, and I think a lot of people find character-driven books boring. Yeah, I don't think for some of these one-star reviews that character-driven books are what they enjoy reading. So let's just move on to the last book in this video. If you want a part 2, let me know. Obviously, the more 5 stars I give out, the more books I will have to talk about. The last one that we're gonna do is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and I think this is the most recent 5-star I have given out. The average rating is a 4.04, and here is how it has been dispersed throughout ratings. I absolutely loved this book. I loved the setting. I loved the dark academia aspect of it. I thought it was really cool that we were in a real place like Yale, but it was a fantasy book. But everywhere around, I mean, I've never been to Yale, but I'm sure if you were a student there, it would be pretty cool to like understand what she was referencing, or just like picture the campus in your mind, even if some of the buildings like didn't exist or whatever. So that was really cool. I loved that our main character was just like thrown into whatever this society was, and that she was kind of running from her own past and was determined not to mess up this opportunity that she had, but like she's kind of in over her head. And I also love a mystery subplot. Well, it's not really a subplot, but there's like 2 different mysteries going on at once, and I love anything that's like paranormal and spooky, dark academia. I feel like this book was just written for me, so let's get on with the 1-star reviews. Also, I have read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and this is like a different author. I know it was a long time between Shadow and Bone and Ninth House. Leigh Bardugo, I love you. So this review says, oof, talk about disappointment. I've been waiting for this book to come out ever since its release was announced, so you can imagine just how annoyed I am. I tried so hard to finish at least half of the book, but I just could not. I'm not gonna lie, I just cannot believe Leigh Bardugo wrote this. I couldn't either, but for a very different reason. The same author who wrote Six of Crows wrote this. Nah. Okay, but Six of Crows is a young adult fantasy and Ninth House is an adult fantasy, so they're definitely going to be different writing styles. All the 200 pages I read, I didn't have a single clue about what was happening. Didn't know who or what this Dante was, realized halfway through that Alex hadn't finished high school and that was rescued from a life of misery, blah blah. In all of this mess, it's kind of hard to give a damn about Yale's secret societies. So about the confusion that the book evokes in the reader, I feel like the plot was pretty easy to follow, and there is like a glossary in the back as well that lists all of the societies, and then also a map in the front of the book so you can kind of like follow where each society is and who they are. I really don't think that the plot was confusing. I feel like everything had a natural trajectory. I think what could be confusing about it is that the writing style is jumping between past and present, but not in different chapters. It like jumps between past and present within the same paragraph. I really love that. I mentioned, I think if I ever talked about my wrap-up here or my thoughts on it, that was one of my favorite parts of the book, and so I can see how that can be confusing, but the overall plot and like the main plot points I feel like weren't too confusing. That's just me. This one says, yikes, how much did I need to lower my expectations to like this book? I wholeheartedly believe an imposter wrote it. Leigh Bardugo can't possibly write something this bad. It has to be an imposter. As you heard, my thoughts was that she couldn't have written this because I really did not like Shadow and Bone. So very 2 different ends of the spectrum. It's pretty obvious that she has very different writing styles when it comes to YA versus adult, which is to be expected. So it is jarring if you've read some of her YA stuff to jump into her adult stuff. They are very different. But I'm just on the end of the spectrum that prefers her adult stuff versus her YA, and it seems like a lot of the 1-stars prefer her YA over her adult. It was interesting to see that some of these points I could agree with and some of them I couldn't, but I think that is just in the nature of having different preferences of books and plot points and character-driven versus plot-driven books and things like that. I wasn't too surprised, but it was interesting to read these reviews and see what people had to say. I am a little bit sad that people really dislike some of my favorite books, but I'm sure some of my 1-star books are someone else's favorites as well. If any of these books I mentioned are 1-star books for you, please let me know in the comments down below. It was really fun seeing everyone else's thoughts and kind of explaining why I gave it a 5-star for reasons that they gave it a 1-star. I literally don't talk to anyone about the books I read besides my boyfriend, and that's against his will. So it's nice to kind of see the discourse online and have a conversation with you guys and see what other people think. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know if you would like a part 2. I have so many other books on my Goodreads that I did not even talk about. If any of these 5-star books are also your 5 stars, let me know so we can have a conversation in the comments. But that's all I have for this week. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. I hope you are all staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!